Well, welcome to the, whatever day this is, June 12th, 2017 Council Work Session, and our order of business is Envision Eugene, Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll turn it over to Robin and his team. As you know, over the next month or two, we'll have several of these Envision Eugene-related conversations as we're looking to try to land or give the opportunity for the council to land after a few years of work. And so this will be the first of several current conversations. So Robin, over to you.
Thanks, John. I'm actually just going to turn it over to Terry, but also wanted to let you know that we have John Brofsky here this evening, Vice Chair for the Eugene Planning Commission, who I believe towards the end of the presentation will come up and just help characterize the work that Planning Commission has been doing for the UGB adoption package.
Great.
Okay, so good afternoon, evening. Mayor Venice and councilors, I'm really happy to be here talking about adopting our urban growth boundary. I wanted to share with you the goal of today's work session leading up to the public hearing on the urban growth boundary. The first goal is to bring you up to date on where we are in the process. We've been responding to your direction over a number of years and many meetings to create the UGB proposal, and we'd like to put this important decision of adopting the urban growth boundary in the context of the overall process of community planning. And by doing that, we will explain the ongoing community planning projects that will be enabled by your action if and when you choose to adopt the urban growth boundary, including growth monitoring and adjustments to respond to the results of that monitoring. The second goal is to explain how staff have attempted to respond to public testimony and public comments raised during the Planning Commission process, and then give our Planning Commission Vice Chair an opportunity to share with you a few highlights from their discussion. And that'll give you an idea about some of the issues that you're likely to hear about when you have your public hearing at the end of the month. And if all goes well, your deliberations would be scheduled for July. So as far as the presentation, I'll walk through some of the major decisions you've already made to get us to where we are, and then explain the major components of the urban growth boundary adoption package, again, the Planning Commission recommendation, and then what happens after you have your hearing. How did we get here? You all remember the Community Resource Group. This was a group of about 70 folks representing a diversity of perspectives. The staff involved used a consensus building approach to talk through collective and individual worst and best outcomes with the goal of developing a commonly held vision for the future. And then the Technical Resource Group met to vet assumptions and methodology and serve as data verifiers for the community. In total, these volunteers spent thousands of hours dedicated to creating the best possible proposal for Eugene. Two of their main products, or the work that came out of the work of the CRG and the TRG, are the 7 pillars shown here. All of these pillars interrelate and are a framework for balancing the needs and goals of the community related to growth. The other major product was the Community Vision Map. This map highlights a focus on our key transportation corridors, our commercial centers, and 20-minute neighborhoods where people can access a variety of needs that they have in their daily life within a 20-minute walk. Your decision-making on Envision Eugene began in 2012 with your approval of the pillars and the 2012 recommendation. At that time, Council directed staff to prepare the urban growth boundary documents in line with the community vision. Then from 2013 through 2015, you acted on a number of efficiency measures, and the purpose of those was to fit more jobs and housing inside the current UGB as state law requires us to do. You acted on downtown and mixed-use code amendments, residential redesignation, such as the Crow Road area, where you redesignated more than 200 acres for low-density development. You adopted the employment and industrial code amendments to add flexibility in West Eugene and in the campus industrial areas, and you revamped the MUPTI program and appointed a community panel. From 2015 through 16, the council provided direction on the location of the UGB itself for jobs, parks, schools, and single-family homes. And the last piece of direction, how to plan for multifamily homes, came in October of 2016. And I'll go over that later in the presentation. So that brings us up to the beginning of 2017. In January of this year, the council approved a public involvement plan for the adoption phase, a timeline and process for the UGB adoption package. The Planning Commission process has been underway since January and resulted in May in recommendations of approval from both the Eugene and Lane County Planning Commissions. More about that and the response to public testimony later in the presentation. Once the UGB is adopted locally and acknowledged by the state, the ongoing implementation can begin, and all the planners get to stay employed, hopefully. We have a lot of work still to do once it's adopted. We can begin growth monitoring, urban reserves, an update to clear and objective development standards, a parcel-specific plan diagram, and, believe it or not, the next evaluation of 20-year land needs for UGB expansion. We've already begun building the growth monitoring database and researching different options for modeling software for the urban reserves process. So now a little bit about the urban growth boundary itself and what's in this binder right here. If you have any questions, the answers are in this binder. A little bit about the process. It's a two-step adoption process for the formal process. And as I mentioned, we worked through the Planning Commission phase from January through May, and those bodies did the same sequence of events that you're now beginning. They held work sessions, a public hearing, and deliberations, and that resulted in their recommendations to you. And now we're beginning the second phase with Council and Board of Commissioners work sessions. Yours is today, the county's is tomorrow. Your joint public hearing is June 27th, and then your deliberations are scheduled for July and August. As far as the legal framework for urban growth boundaries in Oregon, it's fairly prescriptive. The state sets a framework for every city to have an urban growth boundary and a comprehensive plan that complies with the state's 19 statewide planning goals and guidelines, Oregon administrative rules, and court decisions. And it requires that the cities conduct detailed studies for the sufficiency of our land supply for our needs for employment as well as housing, parks, and schools. It also requires that if we find a need to expand, we do a detailed expansion study. And all of those studies are in this binder. The employment and residential land studies are very large components here, and the expansion studies for jobs, parks, and schools look all the way around the urban growth boundary at what are the best places to grow for our community. In the end, the result of the land sufficiency studies demonstrate a need for the city to add land for jobs, parks, and schools. And the locational studies point to the Clear Lake area. My pointer does work. Here for the jobs, parks, and a school, and the Santa Clara area as the best place to add land for a park. And the Bethel and Santa Clara areas are currently underserved for community parks, so this meets a need identified in the parks plan. As far as the jobs, parks, and schools proposal, the employment land map here will probably look familiar to you. We've been working with this for a number of years. The pink area that is proposed to be added to the urban growth boundary will provide land for over 3,000 jobs for the Bethel portion of Eugene, the Golden Gardens Community Park, and the future school site. The future planning in this area will aim to integrate business development with wetland mitigation and a green infrastructure system for the area. And the land uses transition away from the neighborhood, the Bethel neighborhood here in the south, to the park and school, to more campus industrial or office park type uses, and then general industrial up here north of Clear Lake Road. We anticipate adding commercial services at the major intersections in the area and extending roads as shown on the red dotted lines. In the Clear Lake expansion area, we're proposing a new overlay zone that's based on the work of a committee that had two main goals: protect the large employment sites and address environmental justice issues. Now, back in 2012, you directed us to address compatibility between residential and industrial areas, and that includes addressing the issue of environmental justice. And simply put, environmental justice is attained when no particular group of people shoulders a greater burden of environmental impacts than other people. The environmental justice standards prohibit some uses and add process steps such as coordination with neighborhood groups or the Lane Regional Air Pollution Agency for some uses. These standards are groundbreaking for a municipal land use code in the state of Oregon, and they have been the topic of a lot of community conversation. For the large employment sites, the overlay specifies how land may be divided and how the large sites must be provided where they're feasible, based on our analysis of constraints such as wetlands. As far as the school and park proposals, we've already talked about Clear Lake school site and park, and this is a close-up of the Santa Clara Community Park, which is a 35-acre community park located on River Loop. And as I mentioned, the parks for those two neighborhoods serve a documented need for underserved areas of the community. As far as residential lands proposal, the city is anticipating that we are able to accommodate our 20-year needs inside the existing UGB with two strategies chosen by the council in the fall of 2016. There is an ordinance for housing that includes these two strategies. High density housing, so we have about 1,000 homes that we don't have a place for unless we do something. And those 1,000 high density homes are proposed to be accommodated by building on our success with existing tools and programs in the downtown, including MUPD. As far as medium density, you may recall in October, you directed us to look at different ways that we could accommodate the outstanding need for about 600 medium density homes, which are anything from small lot single family, the picture on the left, to row houses to small apartments. And the strategy that you chose was to increase the minimum density in the R2 medium density zone from the current density range of 10 to 28 homes per acre to 13 to 28 homes per acre. So over time, this will accommodate the 600 homes over the 20-year period. In terms of planning for low-density housing, really for all land types, the first thing we do is look at our vacant and partially vacant lands. But I've included a map here, an excerpt from our buildable land study for residential. So that's in the study. About 90% of our single-family housing can be met on our vacant and partially vacant lands. You also directed us to shift our housing mix slightly more towards multifamily housing and make different density assumptions based on the kinds of land we're looking at. For example, we have a lower density assumption in the South Hills than other parts of the community. I mentioned the redesignation of 200 plus acres in 2014, and there's a close-up of the Crow Road area here. And then in 2015, Council's direction on housing included that we should set the baseline UGB and begin the monitoring, code updates, plan diagram, and urban reserves process right away. In terms of the growth monitoring program, in your packet or in the proposal for the urban growth boundary are enabling policies for the comprehensive plan. So those policies enable and establish the growth monitoring program, and then the detail will be contained within a monitoring program document where there will be a technical advisory committee overseeing that work and then bringing the results back to the council. You directed us to bring that first report back to you within 3 years of urban growth boundary acknowledgement. This graphic might look familiar. This was attached to your 2015 presentation, and it just graphically shows those relationships of baseline UGB adoption and then state acknowledgement here, and then what products would be brought back to the council for review a certain number of years later. So turning to the Planning Commission process, the Planning Commission's actually been working on Envision Eugene since 2010, and I did a quick review of their work sessions. They averaged 11 per year, every year since 2010. And then starting at the beginning of this year, with the formal adoption process, they held 3 detailed work sessions, the joint hearing, as I mentioned, and then 4 deliberation sessions that resulted in a letter to you. And now I think is the time for John to come up and tell you a little bit about what's in that.
There we go. Hello, everybody. I prepared a statement and then I'll do a little freelancing afterwards. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is John Borowski. I'm the Vice Chair of the Eugene Planning Commission. And on behalf of the Planning Commission, we very much appreciate the chance to be here this evening. Our goal is to share some perspectives on the Planning Commission's efforts and our recommendations to adopt the proposed UGB and related documents. As you know, an important role of the Planning Commission is to advise the City Council on legislative matters related to land use. That means digging into the details of analysis and options and working through every piece of public input to arrive at our best possible recommendation. We do this based on Council's policies and directives as well as our local and state regulations. It's been a very slow, careful, and thoughtful process to get to the recommendation on the UGB. The Planning Commission has been there with you every step of the way. We've held over 100 meetings since 2010, as Terry mentioned, on the Envision Eugene topic alone. Many of those related to the UGB, including efficiency measures and many other actions you've already taken. The recommendation before you is an important step that builds on a progression of step-by-step decisions, and we have made many more decisions ahead of us, like growth monitoring, urban reserves, updating our needed housing standards, and others. We understand the work of the planning for our community's future is and always will be a work in progress. For this step, we want you to know that the Planning Commission has reviewed the entire set of documents before you and has considered every piece of public testimony we received, some of which you'll see in your public hearings. So that means that we went through this whole book here. This is our public testimony that we went through. And if you were to look at any one of the Planning Commissioner's books, there would be many, many tabs in it there where we had questions and things for the staff that they answered very well. There are a few areas of discussion that the Planning Commission focused on. Again, you've already made a lot of decisions leading up to where we are now. Essentially, the package carries forward those decisions and adds on a few more. Although we heard public testimony and considered everything in this package, these new areas are where we spent most of our time, especially this year. These include the Clear Lake Overlay Zone. We recommended a number of changes that we believe reflect a balance of public testimony that we heard, including how to accommodate industries like specialized wood products manufacturing while protecting our community through special provisions for environmental justice. So, weighing things back and forth. Another area is the final efficiency measures aimed at addressing our medium density housing. The Commission worked on this quite a bit over the past year, based on Council's direction, and is recommending adoption of these as well. Finally, we've taken a close look at the policies and find that support the direction Council is taking with this work. Sorry about that. The Planning Commission believes that this recommendation, while not the final word on our preparation for future growth, is an important step that allows us to keep moving forward. The direction Council has given us will result in a highly adaptable plan. None of us knows exactly what the future will bring, so it makes a lot of sense to be moving forward with a plan that allows community to adapt and respond to whatever unfolds. We, your Planning Commission, are pleased to provide you with the recommendation before you, and we stand ready to roll up our sleeves and work on the stuff that's going ahead. And lastly, I would encourage you all to read the memorandum. It's attachment F in your package today. That kind of digs down a little bit more into the details of some of the things that we thought rose to councils should take a look at. So with that, we'll pass it back to Terry.
Great. So if you have any questions for John, he'll be here for a little while, and then we'll wrap up and get into all the general questions. The Lane County Planning Commission, since this is a joint action to expand or set the UGB, has been on a similar timeline. They met from January through May, actually, with a work session, joint public hearing, and deliberation session. It also resulted in a recommendation of approval to their Board of County Commissioners. They discussed many of the same things our commission discussed. They focused on issues of county importance, such as impacts to farmland and how they're being minimized and mitigated by the proposal, on the growth monitoring program and wanting to take a regional look at things like housing and employment trends. They discussed housing supply and affordability and the dynamics between the small cities and Eugene. And they also discussed urban reserves and how that process will affect county residents. So as I mentioned, they're having their Board of County Commissioners work session tomorrow, and then the two bodies, you and they, will meet together at your meeting on June 27th. We had a slight change to the times, so I want to direct your attention to this slide. When you meet on the 27th, we'll begin with an open house. You don't have to be here for that, but you can be if you want to. It's an open house for materials to share with the public and help people prepare their testimony. And then we'll give a presentation similar to the one I gave you tonight at 6 o'clock, again, to mostly help with the public's understanding of the proposal and help with their testimony. And then the hearing will begin at 6:30. And that is the presentation. Ready for your questions.
Great. Thank you all for a just Herculean task. Appreciate the staff work, and the Planning Commission work is really terrific, and a great, clear presentation history. So do I have folks in the queue? I'm looking this way because you're always first.
I was trying not to be, but I have plenty of questions.
Okay. All right. So I have Mike. Anybody else got a hand raised yet? All right. We'll let Mike lead it off.
Thank you, Mayor. My page 13, your slide 26, please. Up here. Low density housing strategy.
Yes. This one?
Bingo. One of the things you said there at the end, one of the strategies was code updates. It's not one of the pillars, but one of the things that a number of us, probably me loudest, mentioned zillions of times early on, was for us not to build a UGB that had a good deal of what I referred to, I think at the time, as did many, as phantom inventory. When it comes to, we're not going to have needed housing stuff finished before we get to adoption. Is that correct?
Correct.
Part of my concerns is that I see that as the creation of phantom inventory when we're counting lands that we say are buildable, but without the necessary code changes, I question whether we'll actually ever build on them or not. So that's a concern for me. How far would you estimate we are through the process, start to finish, of completing needed housing code changes?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the direction that council gave staff on that back in July of 2015 was to bring updates to the needed housing standards to council for a decision within 1 year of state acknowledgement of the UGB.
But you would acknowledge as well that there was a great deal of talk about let's get started now, right?
Yeah, there was conversation about are there pieces of that we can move forward with that didn't require a great deal of public engagement discussion.
I think, as I recall, I even talked about it as a parallel process rather than a sequential one, right?
For that piece, I don't recall.
July 21st, 2015. I think that was the exact words I'm quoting, unless I'm mistaken, right?
Right, and so The question that you asked before, and I've responded back
Yes,
to you, when we talked about parallel process, I think there are a couple of pieces to that. One is that, well, did you want me to go into
No,
it?
actually, I apologize. What I was trying to say was that I agree that there was some confusion about completion by adoption of that code adjustment. My question was, how far through them are we? Since I think you'll acknowledge it was stated a year and a half ago that we were going to start them then and have a parallel process. How far through them are we?
And I'll let them answer that. But yes, the intent at that time, still the intent is to move down that process as we could, parallel process, expectation we wouldn't complete it. So I'll have either one of you answer sort of where we've gotten into that process.
Yeah, just like maybe Emily, if you could talk about that piece. It's what we agreed to do at that point, I think, is look into the needed housing standards and see if there was some adjustments that could be made. The challenge with the needed housing standards is they evolved from a lot of discussion with the community, and naturally making changes to that would require a considerable amount of work. And that's I think why the direction was given that we would have to be wrapping up this process before we would dig into that process. In addition to that, one of the big challenges is that some of the needed housing standards are actually based on adopted refinement plans for the South Hills. So the South Hills study includes a couple of very specific elements that are embedded in the needed housing standards, and I think some of those are actually some of the elements that we've heard are of concern. So in order to fully dig into that, we would also have to examine or take another look at some of those refinement plan policies.
I guess there has been some work done, and so I think we should at least answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, there was, I'm not sure how much detail that you want on this.
Rough percentage, guess?
I
Start to
think
finish, how
the
far
materials,
through are we?
it's very clear what we've worked with home builders and provided them with a draft of all the needed housing provisions and asked them to mark up exactly what they would like to see happen. Some of those, at least a few of them, have been already addressed. They've been embedded in the code updates that you do in the last 2 years. I think there's been one in each of those, but these are the ones that aren't controversial. There are a few others that are kind of simplistic, like cross out statute and write law.
Right.
And we could craft the provisions as home builders want them. So putting the materials together really isn't the issue. It's the matter of being ready to start that public outreach and the process. So in terms of readiness, I think staff, based on their work, is quite ready when they get the person power and the bandwidth to make that happen.
And I please don't misunderstand me. You guys are doing awesome work, and you're overworked. You're asked to do quite a lot for what's needed to be done. But this is an important distinction to me, and I've only got 30 seconds. I'll need around 2, Mayor, please. My job is to look at it from 30,000 feet and look at it, and I'm saying, is it still reasonable to say that we had a parallel process, or that, in fact, this has turned out to be sequential? Because what I'm hearing from you is, while a lot of little stuff's done, the big things that properly and rightly require more effort and a little bit deeper dig, we can't really do yet. So I'm hearing you say, in fact, we didn't do them in a parallel way. We're going to do them sequentially. Do I have that right?
I would say that, I mean, we're not asking for your adoption, and it's not like the TSP, I would say, is a parallel process with this. We're certainly not at that same place with needed housing, and I don't know that we weren't intentionally ignoring any direction on that. I think that the direction that staff were largely looking at was the direction provided by council in 2015, which didn't.
Maybe I can help a little bit, because I know where your question,
Yeah,
I
we've
think,
talked
better comes from. So how I would characterize it from what I know of the detail is the urban growth boundary process has gone forward, and that's what we're on. The needed housing piece, there's portions of that have actually gone on, as Emily talked about. that there has been some parallel piece to it in that sense, but there's a point at which to continue more on the needed housing is a significant engagement resource effort. So I guess what I would say is there's been a portion of it that's been parallel, but then the remaining part of that work has not gone on continually. Does that make sense? So there's some parallel, not parallel work through the pieces that are engagement and resource intense.
I'll need another round, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else in the queue? No? All right, well, Mike, get
That makes it
another
easy. I'll
round.
take it up from there. And I will say that that particular meeting, and the manager and I have had a conversation about this, and as I have with Robin as well in a different way. A part of my decision making along the way was based on the idea that we were going to do this in a parallel fashion, that we were going to start both urban reserves and the adjustments to, clear and objective standards and needed housing stuff at the same time. So I hope we're going to dive into that with, as deeply and as quickly as we can, because I know at least a couple of people at votes at the table were persuaded to vote for the 34,000 population rather than the 40,000 population because they thought those were going to be parallel processes. So I'm concerned about that. Number two, what's Ed Moore's title? Because I honestly don't know what it is.
Retired.
Retired. Wow. What was his title before he retired?
Regional representative,
For LCDC.
DLCD.
Yeah, see, I get the letters mixed up. That's why I'm asking. So how would you characterize his role with that organization?
We've worked with the department since the beginning of the process to vet our approach with various folks. Ed in particular advises us on any project we have going.
What's he do for them? What's his role?
He's a liaison between the department and the communities.
To help the communities understand state law and put it into practice in the best way?
Yes, and to review our products and
Right.
talk with the staff up in Salem about whether they comply with the state's program.
In a meeting very similar or very nearby to that one in 2015, might even have been that one, I can't remember which, I asked him a question. I said, Senate Bill 100 in the 1970s was put into place in order for us to grow in an intelligent and orderly manner. I said, is it your opinion that a zero number and zero residential growth in our UGB in 30 years is within keeping with the spirit of Senate Bill 100? And he said, no, it's not. So my question is, this is kind of, I have to vote on this, so I'm asking for your professional opinion. How would you respond to him saying that what we're considering adopting is not within the spirit of the state law that was passed for land use planning?
We talked with him after that comment was made, and one of the pieces of information he didn't have at the tip of his tongue was that our Metro Plan, adopted in 1982, had a wildly ambitious population projection that it was based on, and is actually very similar to the projection that we're looking at now for 2032. And so if you look at it that way, it makes sense that it adds up, that our land is sufficient for the amount of time that it's taken to reach that projected population.
If I may, I think the intent is for each community to provide a 20-year supply of buildable land. And the fact that our community has
Growing more slowly?
absolutely more slowly than was projected in 1982 when our urban growth boundary was established. So in essence, we won't achieve the population that was projected in 1982 until after 2030.
What was that number, just out of curiosity? I don't understand. How could we?
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good job, Heather.
That was fantastic. So the 1982 Metro Plan forecasted population for the year 2000 was 293,000. And when PSU adopted a forecast in 2009.
That's county, right?
That's
Metro.
Eugene Springfield.
Eugene Springfield, sorry, go ahead.
293,000. The number for 2030 from the 2009 forecast for the same area is 296,000.
The interesting thing to me is with our numbers now, we're kind of planned based on the 1% annual growth that we've seen for a while. But last year we saw 1.88, so kind of 1.9 for Eugene. Extrapolated out, that's 73,000 people over the time span that we're planning for 34,000. Right now, we have a problem with housing affordability in the first two pillars. Talk about affordability. Maybe the second and third, I might screw that up. I'm going to run out of time. I guess I'm going to need a third round, Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to let Alan take over.
So the 1982 UGB was set. It's not that we had zero growth for that period of time. In fact, we had substantial amount of growth from 1982 to today, especially through 2012 when we started this process. It's just that the plan envisioned, it's just not what we envisioned. That estimate was so over the top that we're not even going to make it to that number until 2030. So it was very vastly overstated. And therefore, we had a lot of room to grow within our UGB. Thus, we didn't need to expand it for 20 plus years. And we didn't. And then when we came down to looking at it again, we still have a lot of growth in our UGB. Thus, we don't need any housing, and we just need industrial land. Is that the interpretation? Is that correct, the way I got it? Yeah. So then moving forward, what we're talking about was there's a lot of data that has been put into this process, and a lot of new data has arisen since we started it, since it's taken so long. And the question was, should we start over and use the new data and then kind of go back to ground zero and then work our way back, which would take an enormous amount of time. We wouldn't be sitting here today. We'd be sitting here 2 years from now. We said, let's go ahead and adopt the UGB, and then let's do some things that we need to do in order to get to a more expeditious process of adopting a new UGB. So let's talk about needed housing regulation, and let's talk about urban reserves, and let's talk about the new Portland State forecast for population. And let's put the monitoring and growth process into place, and let's address all those things over the next couple of years. So if you go back to slide, let's see, it'll be about 28, the ongoing planning for Eugene's growth. Yeah, that one. So that has us doing the adoption of the baseline UGB, but then it has needed housing, monitoring area planning, monitoring report, and the urban reserves process. Maybe you could, I bet you there is a bunch of people who are watching this that are extremely confused because they don't know what needed housing is. They don't know what the monitoring and area planning is, and the monitoring work that we're going to be doing. And they don't know what urban reserves are and what those processes entail. So I'm going to ask you to explain all those a little bit. But then, because we're doing all of that, we were then able to say, well, let's not worry about the getting all the numbers absolutely right now. Let's adopt this thing, work on that stuff. In a couple of years, we'll be able to fix anything that is completely out of whack. Mm-hmm. And that's basically where we are today, right? We're adopting this UGB and working to bring into the new data into the analysis so that we can then refine it. And we gave you some timelines. We said you have to do the urban reserves and all that stuff within 3 years. So it's not like we're going to spend another 15 years not talking about the UGB. So maybe you could go back and help people understand what needed housing is, monitoring, and urban reserves.
Thank you. I would first say that this diagram was made in 2015. So we were in this box adoption process in 2015. We hadn't kicked off the formal adoption process yet, but we were talking with you about it. What happened to delay adoption of the baseline UGB was you directed us to look at different multifamily housing options. And so that is not on this diagram. And that took about 18 months to move away from the process that was going on in South Willamette and come back to you with different ways of meeting our multifamily housing need. And the staff that were working on that were thus not working on the adoption process of this or getting into the details of urban reserves yet or the other projects. What urban reserves is a process that the state enables for communities to plan a longer time frame. And in so doing, they're allowed to consider lands besides, or I should say, including farm and forest lands that may, depending on their characteristics, be better for Eugene to grow on than the rural residential lands we're forced to look at first under the current UGB process. So that was the main motivator for directing us to start an urban reserves process, was that we would be able to take a look at our growth needs in a longer time frame, get some efficiency of scale, and also grow in the places that you feel as a council are the best places for us to grow. The needed housing statutes require cities to have clear and objective development standards for housing. And Emily's more of an expert on this than I am. But our commitment, based on your direction from 2015, is to update our clear and objective standards, which we do have, but which are difficult in several places. And so we are committed to revamping those through a community process and bringing them back to you within a year of acknowledgement of the urban growth boundary. The monitoring and area planning monitoring program is being built into a new database that will let us keep track real time of development trends and population and housing mix and all those things in a much more robust and accurate way than we've had in the past. Our data right now comes from several different sources, and we have to piece it together and look backwards to try to ask a question the data wasn't originally designed to answer. So it's difficult right now. But our new monitoring program will be much improved. The area planning is referring to both specific areas like South Willamette or the Walnut Station area and neighborhoods like the River Road Santa Clara that you directed us to start work on just recently. So those are the area planning projects, and I think that's everything on the diagram.
So I actually had a couple of seconds left, but I just wanted to follow up with one comment, which was that all of this work is being done by you guys and the people sitting in the front row. And that's it, right?
Maybe one
and
more.
so all of this stuff is done by the same people. And I'd add two more processes that are on there, which is the River Road Santa Clara process and the University area process and the South Willamette process are also being done by the same people. So it's almost impossible to have all that work done at the same time. So it needs to be necessarily staggered and planned out in an orderly fashion to be able to get complete.
I would say that's true. However, you did allocate money for us to begin on the growth monitoring program and the urban reserves, and we're going to be spending that as soon as we can devote staff to launching the program.
Right.
Yeah.
Through consultants.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was a big part of the conversation in 2015 about the parallel process, was that in order to be able to move forward with urban reserves at the same time that we were doing area planning, specifically in the university area neighborhoods and River Road Santa Clara, that we'd need to have a budget to be able to do the growth monitoring and urban reserves.
Hire some consultants to help you guys do that.
Exactly.
Okay. Greg?
So I'm not quite sure how to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it the best way I can. So how does current real-time and future demand affect the strategy around needed housing and ultimately urban reserves? So we've got people that are coming into Oregon, and people are moving in out of different places and around Oregon and are attracted to come here. And so there is a demand for a certain type of housing. And usually what happens is once that demand is met or filled, then other types of housing tend to float down into, more affordable housing or, whatever the case may be. So how does that demand affect these particular calculations as we move forward? Because the amateur assumption is that people are coming in and they want to get, for the most part, they're looking for single-family housing, right? You got some others that are not necessarily attracted to that type of housing. They want, something in a multi-unit kind of style of housing, or, or even a smaller kind of unit housing like has been built in my ward on Avalon. You got all of those smaller, type footprint houses that are basically starter homes, for lack of a better way of couching that. So how does those pieces impact ultimately what we're doing with needed housing, which is a little more ambiguous to me, and then how we ultimately move towards the other piece with urban reserves, and then looking at those, forest lands and farmlands that could possibly, ultimately go into another different inventory category for, possibly single family or multi-unit.
The first thing I would say is that Eugene has a need for all housing types. So part of this study is the housing needs analysis, which looks at the demographics and the trends and finds that Eugene has a need for all housing types. So we have a need for multifamily, single family, lower income, moderate income, upper income, everything. And we have to put together a package that addresses all of those types of housing the best that we can. Knowing that we can't predict the future 100%, as John said, you directed us to include this monitoring program and report back to you as soon as we're able so that we can adjust if we're off course. If Mike's point about the population over the last year continues, we want to be able to respond to that. We don't want to be caught where we don't have enough land. If we grow that fast, we want to be able to respond to it. So with a 30 or 20-year projection right now, we feel that we will be able to respond because we're not going to run out of land in the 3 years that we're doing the update. We actually show that we have enough land for 20 years. So if we're off by a little bit, we're going to be able to catch up with that analysis and get us on track. That's our hope. Do you have a remaining question?
Close, but not quite. I may need another round, Mayor.
Okay.
I'm running out of time. 26 seconds.
Chris?
Yeah, this may not involve a lot. I'm really trying to think in terms of a best outcome, worst outcome kind of thinking. What I think I'm hearing is the best outcome is that we develop an urban growth plan that accommodates what we think we're going to do in the next 20 years in terms of population growth, not only just from the numbers of people coming, but from the kinds of housing they want to buy. Mm-hmm. We're very concerned that if people are coming to town, they can't all afford expensive, high-end homes. That a certain percentage of people coming to town are going to want to be able to buy into affordable housing. We want to ensure that the inventory available can accommodate those kinds of affordable building. Is that the kind of best outcome that you believe this plan is working toward? Mm-hmm. And that number of people right now we know may be small because we're working with a 2012 number, but as you just said, we're trying to build enough flexibility into the plan that if we should get more growth than that, particularly through the urban reserve strategy, we can accommodate that over a 3 or 4 year period of accommodation. That would also be part of the best outcome.
Yes, that will correct course.
That a worst outcome would be that we pass an urban growth boundary that somehow is cast in stone or concrete and can't really be changed, so that suddenly we have a huge influx of people, we don't have the land available to build the kinds of housing that they could afford, and we're stuck behind the 8 ball because we can't expand the urban growth boundary anymore, and there's no accommodation for them. Would that be an accurate description of a worst outcome?
Yeah, and I think that we are absolutely, I'm looking at Emily, but able as a city to update our UGB whenever we want. And if you direct us to study expansion based on a monitoring report, we can do that. We don't have to wait 20 years.
Okay, so there's an ability to amend the urban growth boundary if we should start to feel like we're getting behind the 8 ball. It might take 2 or 3 years, but what you're saying is there's enough flexibility in the inventory that even as we're making that adaptation, there would be enough flexibility to accommodate it.
Yes, I think that's accurate because it's a 20-year horizon that we're planning for.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And does part of the best case scenario also include the notion that with increased density, neighborhoods are going to start to feel pressure to lose their livability? Because that's one of the arguments I hear, that your best case scenario makes my neighborhood more difficult to live in because you're assuming where there's going to be more multifamily housing, more density, less single family homes. Is that part of your best case scenario, or are you looking for a scenario that doesn't necessarily destroy neighborhood livability?
I would definitely say I'm looking for a scenario that meets our best outcomes and improves the livability of neighborhoods. But it's one of the hardest things about the plan because everybody's definition of livability is different. And we're doing our best to craft a plan that's both flexible and accommodates the needs in a way that we can demonstrate it to you and to the state. So what we heard from you is 20-minute neighborhoods, livable neighborhoods, and also key corridors. To focus your development on key corridors, connect people by bus rapid transit, invest in improvements on those streets, and then take your time, basically, with planning, detailed plans for neighborhoods that can reflect those neighborhoods' best outcomes for their own livability.
So it's not been part of your best outcome planning to say, in order to achieve the density we want for our best outcome, it has to be at the expense of something else, whether it's neighborhoods or population or whatever it is. You're not trying to craft a best outcome that somehow ignores some other element.
Right. No, we're trying to balance all of the pillars.
Okay. So we could pass this urban growth and it wouldn't somehow lock us into a concrete, oops, we've screwed up and we're going to be in trouble later on kind of deal.
No, you're able to adapt, and in fact, you built that into the plan with adoption of Pillar 7, the adaptable implementation pillar, and the direction to build the growth monitoring program and all of the other updates.
Cool, thank you.
Betty?
That word concrete's a good one. I hope we aren't turning into a concrete jungle. But I have a question. Is it still possible to change the ratio that we're planning for between multifamily and single family? I think we made the wrong choice. And there are many people who think we should redo that.
You know, the council can always make changes to whatever assumptions you want in the plan, so that's possible. All I would say is that would be a significant change in sort of where we go from here, both in timeline work and moving forward. So all I would ask, if council is choosing to do that, that there's a lot of consideration before you take that step at this moment. As Chris mentioned and as Terry mentioned, one of the real values of Pillar 7 is that all that data starts getting collected in real time, and then that real time data comes back to council on a much more frequent basis. In this case, we're talking about, I think, 3 years or whatever that number is, for you to consider, is that UGB appropriate, or does that need to now be changed based on actual data into the assumption? So it provides a lot of flexibility into the plan.
And of course, I don't think we need to plan for mobs of people to come here. But if they're coming, maybe multifamily housing or multi-unit housing is a better way to accommodate people. And it's really important that we save agricultural land, and we're talking about destroying some of that at the moment. I was at City Club last week. There was an interesting comment by an architect when someone asked about the expansion, which Alan would know more about than I do in his ward. She said, as we grow, it's really important to keep open space.
Just to clarify, right now with the current housing mix, there's not a recommendation to move into any farmland for housing. Now, for the employment lands,
but it's still we're still moving into it.
For employment lands
Yes.
or for parks, so that would be different. So the housing mix would not impact that particular expansion. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the future, it could.
Might-
In the future, it
It'll
could.
need to be
yeah.
a part of your urban
Eventually, it
resource.
might.
Yes, in the future, you could
Yeah.
have that.
And we should be
conversation,
thinking
yeah.
about the future, I think. But also about the job land, and I can't see the timer there. I see it. About the jobs, I think the kinds of jobs that seem to be desirable and that are coming don't take a lot of space. So can we rethink this large space for jobs? Is that possible? Do we have to have
There's
huge
a legal-
places?
There's a legal process for that. You technically can remove land from your urban growth boundary if you find that it is not needed for the purpose for which it was added. I don't know that anyone in the state has ever used that process, but it is on the books and it's available to you.
Thank you.
Claire and then Emily.
Thank you. So thank you to the Planning Commission for all the incredible, great work that you guys have been doing. Keying off of what Betty raised, did the Planning Commission hear from many folks that we should reconsider our housing mix?
We deferred to council on that. We followed council direction. So when council came up with the direction to go with the housing mix that they had, that's the direction we took. And then we took the data that was provided to us and said, how best can we fit this in using the direction? And there were several directions from council over the years. So that's not something that we did. We didn't do policy stuff. We did wonk stuff.
Right, but you had a public hearing, is that right?
We did have a public hearing.
And in that public hearing, did you hear from folks that we should reconsider the housing mix?
No, because most of the public hearing that we had, most of the talk was about the expansion for the employment and parks. So I think that the people who would have given that type of public testimony, they may come to your public testimony because it is more of a policy type of a decision. And even if they had given that type of testimony, I don't think it would have been the position of the Planning Commission to make those types of changes.
Okay, thank you. And then on the industrial lands piece, my understanding, and so whoever is best equipped to check my understanding on that, part of the rationale was to accommodate the need of farms and agricultural producers in order to have a location to collect and process and distribute the great agricultural resources that we raise here in the Willamette Valley. Is that correct in terms of one of the underlying reasons for this recommendation?
I would say there's a couple things that the proposal does. One, it allows current agricultural use to continue until such point as a property owner wants to stop that use and annex to the city for employment use. So that agricultural zoning will stay as long as it's being farmed and the owner intends for it to be farmed. The other thing is that I know it is a hope for many in the community and in the food processing and food production industry that there be room for a shared facility of sorts. Some call it a food hub or just a shared processing and distribution facility. I talked with one of the managers of Organically Grown Company about this. They provide this service called cross-docking where folks come from way outside the area and pick up things and distribute them out. They're not at the point where they need a piece of land right now and want to build this facility, but the zoning overlay is designed to accommodate it. And that was an important part of the whole process of looking at the zone and the overlay, was to make sure those kinds of things would be supported and we would gear the development of the Clear Lake area towards those industries that we most want to see out there. As you get further north, more kind of general industry is allowed, but as you get closer to the neighborhood, there are more and more restrictions.
Right. So I just think it's important to kind of recognize that we're trying to acknowledge the industry that we have here locally, and that our agricultural and food production industry is a major economic driver locally, and by planning for its future needs, we are actually, making sure that that remains a viable part of our economy. So I think that's an important
That was one.
point.
There's several targeted industries that are in the Clear Lake overlay zone, and food and beverage manufacturing and distribution is one of those targeted industries. So we kind of developed the overlay zone to make it accommodating to those types of industries.
Because I worry that when we talk about this, people think of smokestacks, they think generally of wood products, maybe exclusively, and they're not remembering that we have these other needs for the other economic sectors that we have out in the county in particular. Thank you.
Emily?
Thank you. One question, I think you answered it. If we got an influx of small businesses that still needed land and we used up all the little lots, could we then go back and divide the big ones? I mean, I just have this idea of everything used up in these big empty lots.
Actually, not without coming back to you and having you make some changes. The way that the law works is the statutes are designed to make sure that if we have gone on to agricultural land, or frankly any land outside of our current urban growth boundary, to accommodate a need that we feel like we can't meet inside our UGB, we have to preserve that land for that specific need. So here, what we were finding is, and staff can talk about this more, but basically that we did not have a supply of large lots, and we were losing businesses that were homegrown and needed to grow bigger, or employers that wanted to come but needed large lots. So one of the main threshold requirements in looking at potential land outside this UGB was the size. So if we ended up, if small businesses wanted to come, small employers wanted to come, we cannot allow division of those large lots to accommodate smaller employers. Now, if in the future at one of these check-ins, the monitoring, and we have data from the monitoring program that demonstrates that our assumptions about the need for these large lots were maybe right at the time but aren't anymore, or businesses really are moving towards a smaller scale, or we have opportunities, you can amend or change the same plans that we're bringing to you right now and demonstrate perhaps that is now an unmet need and that those areas already inside the UGB should be used for that. But we have to prove up we really need it and that it's appropriate to take agricultural land for that purpose. So we could do that, but not without working with you first and having some data behind it.
Perfect. But the land is already decided to be taken away out of agricultural, so it's not like we would then be looking at new agricultural land.
Actually, it is what we're doing with this process is identifying the area that is in the urban growth boundary, which means it's urbanizable. It doesn't mean it's going to be urbanized unless or until one of the kinds of industries that we've planned for comes and wants to establish there and the owner's ready to sell. Until that time, it stays in, it's sort of designated for that purpose, but until that time, it stays in its current use, its current zone in terms of the agricultural uses that can happen on it right now will continue to happen until that moment when the specific use can be established on the parcel.
My brain just stopped on that topic. I'll switch to something else and come back to it. Oh, the ag land, my understanding is it's used for ag land until somebody else wants to buy it and they want to sell. So it's being used to grow hay right now. And my understanding is it's not the very bestest ag land except in a few places. So it might not be growing very good hay and somebody wants to play plastic monkeys. So they bring in the money for the plastic monkeys and we're never growing hay on it again. So I just want to be careful that it's not an illusion that we're keeping this as ag land. We're keeping it as ag land until we do something else with it. And we can do a lot of other things with it for industry, not build houses on it. One of my concerns is the wetlands. I know we have a lot of wetlands here, and we like them. If we use up our wetlands, and I understand, again, some of these aren't the greatest wetlands, I'm concerned about mitigation dollars. I'd much rather us put our money into making our own place better than paying for wetlands somewhere else. So that's just a concern of mine. The Human Rights Commission asked to take out the wood products, so I don't know where we are on that, but they thought that was a big problem. I'd like to get on with passing this urban growth boundary. It's my understanding we have enough housing land for 20 years, and if that's not true, we certainly have enough for the next few years. We're looking at 1,000 units downtown and 600 elsewhere. That should keep us going for a little while, and I don't want to get sidetracked on housing when so many plans are depending on us doing this. The goal at this point was to get parks, schools, and employment, and we're addressing that. So I just like to not see us get way off the path with something that's coming up in a while. Everything's going to change, but we do need to make some progress. So I'd like to be really careful about actually getting this done soon.
Greg, I have you for a second round.
Yeah, I'm kind of moving in the direction of Claire and Emily on this. And this question goes to, are we looking at, in the Clear Lake expansion area, something similar to what you see up in Newburgh? And what I mean by Newburgh, it's like, you go out on that strip there, and I mean, they literally almost have a winery on every corner. But our deal is going to be more for food and the food hub. No, this wine in Newburgh, trust me. I tried to find wine and beer in Newburgh. I couldn't find it. But no, I mean, seriously, having that kind of commercial, industrial, ag, mix of development that they have in that area, that where, you can, the winery's right in the backyard. You got the tasting rooms and the whole deals going on, but ours needs to be more focused on, kind of the food production. And what we've talked about at this table a number of times is creating a food hub in Northwest Eugene along Highway 99 to where the processing can go on and we can really start addressing some of our food security issues.
I would just say one quick thing on that. The desire for a food production hub on Highway 99 is something I think you're right has been talked about a lot at this table and is one of the actions that will be enabled by setting the UGB. So we don't have jurisdiction over the Clear Lake expansion area until it's within Eugene's urban growth boundary. And at that point, we can work on an economic development strategy and an infrastructure plan and a wetland mitigation plan, all those pieces that will actually prepare the land for development. So I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah, we need to get on with it.
Beer is food security.
Okay, I think, Mike, you get a third round here.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Two things really quick. Number one, I would urge on, and I guess this will be up to my colleagues. I'll make the motion certainly if it doesn't come forward this way. But I would urge the staff to consider bringing these back together and forward as one proposal. My understanding is that the county commission that needs to co-adopt with us may want a similar thing. I may be wrong about that, but I'd say it's possible. So I would urge us to do that. Number two is that, to my friend Chris, I would say it's not about whether we can adjust. It's about whether we will. It's about whether the council will. It's about whether the community will. And my concern around this is about affordability and the manner in which we'll know we should, because what I heard is if we discover we need to, we can reconsider and add. But we have absolutely no standards that I'm aware of about what we need to means, unless there are metrics that I'm unaware of. Do we have metrics built in that have anything to do with affordability or demand?
Yes, those are being built into the growth monitoring program and will be the primary work of the technical advisory committee that'll bring you the
Tell me
monitoring
about those,
report.
please. And if I could, let's start with a baseline. What percentage compared to like square footage is Eugene more expensive than all the surrounding communities on a square footage for like kinds of housing?
I think I'd have to come back to you on that one.
Well, and my point is demand is increasing, and it's increasing around us more quickly than it's increasing for us, but it's increasing at an ever expanding rate here, and housing is becoming less affordable as we go through time. So where's the trigger point for me when housing finally becomes so expensive because of demand that we're on our way to becoming San Francisco that it's just silly? I mean, at what point do we link demand to affordability and say that's the trigger point where we need to add land? And how do we, what are the metrics for that? Can you tell me about what you've developed on that so far?
Well, that's a really good question. I know that we'll be looking for ways to address housing affordability, everything from adding land to additional subsidized units to promoting different missing middle types.
I apologize for the interruption.
Yeah.
I appreciate that there are lots of strategies. Mm-hmm. But I would like us to admit or to recognize the importance of demand, housing demand, as a part of the affordability question. Because I don't think we do a good job of talking about what a large portion of the unaffordable housing is, because we have incredible demand and we have we don't have enough supply of land for new housing. And the reason I know that is from speaking with professionals in this field who, although I've heard it said tonight, we have land enough for the 20 years, would argue that point until their dying day. So how can we measure that? What are the metrics that say, compared to Junction City, compared to Harrisburg, compared to anywhere else, the bare land costs, the cost per square footing of the same type of housing? What are we doing around that?
But I think we'll have to do, I don't think we're prepared to get into that level of detail on a particular growth monitoring metric. But it is one that we'll want to have a conversation around this table as we move forward on the growth monitoring. And so when we talk about either trigger points or what are the variety of metrics in something, affordable housing is a pretty complicated issue. And so there's multiple things we would want to take a look at that, some of which comes through this particular Envision Eugene, but there are other pieces to that as well, I think, through Stephanie Jennings' program and other. And so we'll want to come back and have a greater in-depth conversation. I don't think we're prepared to answer that specificity tonight.
I would also just like to seize my moment to chime in here that we are having a community conversation about missing middle housing, and it is addressing affordability, and it is addressing housing type and where we have barriers in the community. And that, I think, is the next conversation. Once this is done, we get to go a little farther on that conversation. So I think we're talking about it, and we will. Okay, I have Chris ready for another round?
Yeah, I just also wanted to add, being on the Housing Policy Board, just to put your mind at ease, that we are having huge conversations about the whole affordability issue, and the Housing Policy Board has set up subcommittees, one of which is dealing specifically with affordability and what needs to be done to encourage, incentivize, and otherwise assist more affordable housing in whatever form that looks like, whether it's missing middle or whether it's single family or whether it's multifamily or whatever it is. What needs to be done, maybe through cooperative housing or whatever, to create and ensure a greater level of affordability. In some cases, some of the only ways to keep housing affordable is to buy up housing, rehab it, and keep it at an affordable level, which is what's being done. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to a lot of what housing is needed. If you leave the market just by itself, you don't tend to get the level of affordability you really want. So there needs to be some sort of a partnership, and that's what helps to happen. Just one tiny example, there's about 66,000 households in Eugene, give or take. If even 15% of those households considered an accessory dwelling unit in their backyard, a tiny house, that could add between 9,000 and 10,000 more living units in people's backyards. Now, not everybody's going to do it, so I think that's a very ambitious target. I don't think we'd ever get to that. But even if you cut that and took it only 10%, even if you got 1,000 more living units through accessory dwelling units or something like that, built attractively, built so they're non-invasive, but nevertheless, 1,000 more living units, small square footage, makes them very affordable. $30,000, $40,000 a piece, you could buy those. You can afford those. That's what I call affordable living. And there's a lot of people who are looking for that as a lifestyle that they want to adopt. So anyway, there are options. There's a lot of options. And I think some of the traditional thinking won't get us to where we want to go. And I would agree from that standpoint. But there are some new ideas around housing, particularly around affordable housing, that are coming up that we, believe it or not, are at the forefront of thinking about. Some of the efforts that we're making around tiny housing are being observed by the rest of the country, because I do see, not for everybody, but for many people, that's a very viable opportunity for affordable housing. So that's just one example, but there's many other ones that we could pursue. And I think that's why, if we're creative, we can try to achieve some of this best outcome.
Alan?
Yeah, I agree with what Chris just said wholeheartedly. And what the mayor said, we are having conversations about affordability of housing, workforce housing. In fact, I've been working on a work session poll on missing middle housing to get the council more engaged in that process, to working on that problem as well as the affordability of housing. So, but as to the recommendation about how we're moving forward, there's three options here. One is to go with what we got, call it good, and then move forward. The other one is, we got all this new data because we've been doing it so long, let's integrate that, and basically that would push us into a different timeline, probably another, at least a year, probably 2 years before we adopted the UGB. But the third one, which is the recommendation, which is the hybrid option, says, let's go with what we got, do the needed housing, do the urban reserves, do the growth monitoring, get new data on the housing mix between multifamily and single family, get new data on the population, and then within 3 years we can adjust we'll use all that data, that within 3 years we can adjust the urban growth boundary again. That's basically the hybrid option that we're moving towards. So it's go with what we got now, but work on updating it and making it more up to date in terms of all those other numerical and regulatory things that we need to do.
Okay, I think we've wrapped it up. Everybody's had a chance to say what they need to say.
No.
Thank you very much for that presentation and all those answers. We have, Councillor Clark does have a motion on a new topic, so you're free to go. And we have 10 minutes, so I'm going to let him step up on this motion.
Thank you, Mayor. If I get a second, I'll speak to this for a second, but I sent this a week or so ago. I move to direct the city manager to return to council within the month with ordinance language to create a 1,000-foot buffer between retail marijuana shops in Eugene.
Second.
Thank you. When this matter came before us previously, one of the things that I said was that I didn't see a compelling reason for us to do this, and that I didn't want to mess with the market. You know, if we're going to have a marijuana shop on every corner and that's what the market bears, well then so be it. Gosh, you know, the market will sort that out. And I thought that unless there was a compelling reason, I don't want us to intervene and to act. And I've discovered one since then that seems compelling to me. And so I want to be able to change my mind, and that's why I've made the motion. And I hope my colleagues will support this, because it'll just give us an opportunity for a public hearing on that ordinance language that comes back, and an opportunity to talk about it again. That's all my motion does, is bring it back for a discussion with the specific language in a public hearing. The specific item that changed for me was understanding that we've altered, with the legislation approving the sale of recreational marijuana, we've altered the marketplace and we've altered demand in a fairly immediate way. It's spiked pretty hard for retail space for marijuana shops. And one of the things that's happening is a lot of business people who are, especially local folks, mom and pop owners of small businesses, are seeing their rents for their businesses get spiked, and in some cases doubled, and in some cases more, because the landlord knows, hey, if these guys won't pay it, I can get a marijuana shop in here that will, because the demand is so high in the short term. The problem with that is that if those folks can or don't pay it, then we're not actually adding value in the marketplace. And if they can't pay it, they move out. We may well get a marijuana shop there, but the proliferation of them won't last. And when the market sorts that out, then what we'll have is a lot of empty storefronts and a lot of hurt local businesses that had their rents jacked up really precipitously because of the false demand. And so because it's short-term negative effects on the commercial real estate market and it's not adding value, I hope you'll support the idea of creating some slowdown mechanism, some buffer.
I have Betty in the queue. Emily, did you want to comment first?
I did. I just wanted to at least say that it's likely that this kind of amendment would be in the city's land use code. That's generally where you'll see a buffer from a certain, where we don't license these, so there's really not another place in the code. What that means is that if you do want to go forward with this, it will be an ordinance that would have to be passed by the Planning Commission first. So being clear about the nature of what you're asking for, maybe yours would just be a discussion about should we move forward with this. I just wanted to make sure you knew that you couldn't actually move forward without going through that process unless we find another creative means for you.
We couldn't have the manager come back with ordinance language that didn't go through the Planning Commission first, is that what you're saying?
You can't adopt it, right? Under your code, any amendments to Chapter 9 have to be first gone through.
My motion is to have him return with language for an ordinance.
To discuss.
Yes.
That's absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Betty?
I heard a compelling argument against this with a former counselor, George Brown, when this came up before. He said, I think I'm quoting him right. He said, I'm in the food business, the wine business, and the book business, and nobody is protecting me from competition. And I thought that was a compelling argument, and I decided I am not for protecting marijuana businesses from competition from one next door if necessary. Nobody stops a hotel from being built next to a hotel or a grocery from coming in. Nobody stopped Whole Foods and Trader Joe's from coming in and competing with other people. And I thought the free market, the free enterprise, people believed in free enterprise. Thank you.
Claire?
Thank you. Yeah, I am definitely leaning towards Betty's perspective on this, and there's another former city councilor who gave public comment about this question as well. But I'd still be willing to entertain the idea of having another public hearing on it. But the original conversation we had, it was a 2-year sunset on there. It wasn't permanent. So that would be important to me as well. Would only be a buffer for 2 years and 2 years after.
Was that a friendly amendment?
It was just letting you know that my potential support would be contingent on some additional items.
Chris?
Not a promise of support.
Yeah, in terms of basic philosophy, I agree with Betty. Nobody's regulating fast food restaurants or anything else. But what I'm not hearing is this is not about marijuana. Mm-hmm. This is about jacking up rents.
Right.
Which, if I were looking for a parallel, it would be kind of like tenant issues in terms of jacking up rents for tenants and then evicting them. And is there a role for the state or the city in terms of getting involved in that? And we've already said that, yeah, we need to be involved with that to try to not create an unfair situation. And I think that's where there's a similarity, but I still am wanting to say I'm really cautious about getting too engaged in trade unless there is a real alarming level of involvement. And so I guess what I would want to know is rents being jacked up to get rid of tenants. Is that happening a lot? Has it happened several times? Do you have specific examples? You don't have to give them here at the table, but I would be curious to know if this is a significant enough problem to actually create an ordinance that changes an entire class of business. Because, some landowners are trying to make some money. It really comes from me always wanting to tread very carefully when it comes to the world of trade and commerce. And if there's a real problem, if it's been happening a lot, if it's having a substantial effect on commerce, then I would want to look at it. But if it's happening a few times to a few people, that gets back kind of to the, sometimes things happen in the world of commerce that hopefully will straighten themselves back out again, which is hopefully what the market does. So I would be willing to talk about it some more, but only so I can get some additional information on just how extensive this problem is. If it's a relatively minor issue, if it's only happened a few times, I'm not inclined to change an entire commerce structure for that. But if it looks like, well, it just happened 50, 60 times, then it's worth talking about. We're talking about tenant protections. We may want to talk about protections from that standpoint. So I would be willing to support it only so that I can get more information about, is this a significant amount, big enough problem? But in no way, shape, or form am I telegraphing that I would be supportive of it as an actual ordinance.
Alan?
Well, maybe, Mike, what might be get a majority support would be asking staff, instead of come back with ordinance language, is to come back with an investigation and more information about this problem that you're bringing up, and answering Chris's question, which is significantly different workload than I think an ordinance, which sets up a whole bunch of separate processes. If you want to talk about it more and answer Chris's question, that's I think different.
Any other comments before I give Mike another chance? Okay, go for it, Mike.
Yeah, I've already heard from a number of people on this, and it's not, there's one in particular who's organized a number of community members, and I think we'll hear from them tonight during public forum. But I also am aware from other business associates of the short-term precipitous effect this is having on new rent renegotiations for an awful lot of people. And as a result, it's having an effect on our business community that's jacking up the price without a commensurate increase in value. It's just getting the money because folks can right now. And the problem with that is those people who end up losing the ability to do business, and it is prevalent. And you don't have to take my word for that. I'm happy to have us get a hearing on it and get more information. But again, this motion just directs, let's start the process of asking the public to come forward and talk about it and tell us about that experience, because I know it's very real from what I've heard anecdotally. So I would request the opportunity for us to start the process that way.
Any other comments on this? Okay, we have a motion that's been, would you want to state your motion again?
Direct the city manager to return to council within a month with ordinance language to create a 1,000-foot buffer between retail and marijuana shops in Eugene. That, by the way, doesn't say start the public hearing process. It just says return with language so we can look at it and talk about it.
Can I just ask one, rather than within a month, can you say before your summer break, because
that's what I meant to say.
Okay, so there's like a couple meetings after a month, and we may have to use those.
Happy to.
Councilor Semple, are you okay with that too? You seconded.
Okay. Chris?
I just wanted to clarify, is inherent in that bringing back information about the incidences of rent hikes taking place so that we don't just have ordinance language, we actually have the information surrounding it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we know what the motion is. It's been seconded. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 2. It passes. It'll come back to us. Thank you all, and I'll see you in half an hour.